Bhagavad Gita, Shloka number 12, chapter 2. Na tvevāhaṁ jātu nāsaṁ, na tvam neme janādhipāḥ, na chaiva na bhaviṣhyāmaḥ, sarve vayamataḥ param. Shri Krishna said, "It is not that I have never existed, nor you, nor these kings, nor is it that we shall cease to exist in the future." This is a very interesting verse. As we all know, Arjuna was in a state of dismay, thinking that there is going to be death, there is going to be the loss of the ones he considered his beloveds, the one he considered his own. And now Shri Krishna tells him that while you are mourning for the ones who are going to die and for the ones who will die, who are dead, you should know that we have never not existed and we will continue to exist. In the previous shloka, Shri Krishna tells him about the immortality of the self and tells him that you have to have your perceptions clear. You have to see through what is what. And in this shloka, he presents a very novel idea. Now, many philosophers or schools of philosophy have kind of seen it in their light or in the light of the philosophy that they have presented. While this can be done from a philosophical perspective, it's very important to see the shloka as not from a philosophical standpoint, but from the standpoint of truth purely as truth. Krishna here is teaching Arjuna in a step-by-step process. In philosophy, we already have the truth that is declared, and all logics and proofs are presented to establish that truth. But in the Gita, it is not like that. In the Gita, the presentation is done at the standpoint of where Arjuna is, or you would say at the standpoint of where a seeker is. Now, a seeker wants to know the truth. The seeker approaches the truth in a way that the seeker understands. And the teacher's role here is to present it exactly that way, in a manner that the seeker is able to grasp. If the highest truth be told, immediately the seeker is left confused. It's not that Arjuna does not get confused over the process. In fact, there are at a couple of places he expresses this confusion. And it is rightly so, because it is immediately very hard to understand the highest truths. Now here what Krishna presents is twofold, because he is speaking from the standpoint of Sankhya, which is the most easiest to understand when an aspirant embarks on the spiritual journey. There are two things that exist within us: consciousness and matter. Matter is what we know of. It can be known. And the pure consciousness that we are cannot be known. You can only be it. So what Krishna does is, Krishna speaks of that which is known here. And he also speaks of the highest truth. And when we take this verse, we have to see it in its totality. Let us take ourselves back to being somebody like Arjuna who is trying to understand. Now what do we see? First declaration is very clear. The declaration that it is not that we will not exist, all of us will exist. It can be taken from the standpoint of the self, that the self is indestructible, which Sri Krishna will elaborate and will repeat again and again in verses to come. But let us assume that we cannot see that. And then we can only see the physical matter, the reality of matter as is presented to us. And then the fear of dying comes. At that time, placing the truth as what we see, Krishna also tells Arjuna that these kings, you, me, we will be reincarnating again and again from the standpoint of matter. So when we look at our beloveds, when we look at the ones we care for, one of the reasons why we are not able to see beyond the physical existences of our deep association of them with us. My mother, my father, my friend, my child, my husband, my wife, my friends. It's always a my feeling. Now the my feeling in spirituality has to be kept aside immediately. And if you can do that, then you will see that all the people that we think of as ours are on an individual journey of their own. And in that individual journey, at a particular birth, in a particular phase, we come in contact with them. There are some aspects of theirs that are connected to ours, and we mistake those little aspects to be so connected that we feel that they belong to us, but they do not belong to us. Every birth, every incarnation is a soul's journey towards liberation. And thus, when we step back and see, then we find that all those who we called as ours have their own journey to fulfill. They have come to fulfill certain desires. We have come to fulfill certain desires with them. They have come to give us certain opportunities, certain environments. We have come to give them certain opportunities, certain environments. But beyond that, they are on their own. Each soul is going back to its very source. That is why Krishna here presents both the highest truth, that even if you take it from the standpoint of the self, nobody goes anywhere. They are always going to exist. But if you see from the standpoint of matter, which is an openness that you need to have, then you will see that who I call as my father is only there because of this birth. But the whole phase of being an embryo to old age and death is going to be a continuous cycle for that soul, till that soul experiences the ultimate reality, knows the ultimate reality. And thus, the theory of reincarnation is presented. And in this reincarnation, right now, we do not ask this question, oh, if you're saying reincarnation exists, what is it that reincarnates? No, that is not to be done immediately. It is to be done in phases. For understanding reincarnation, you have to understand what we are made of. What are the elements that comprise of which gives us a sense of identity? What is it that really incarnates? And this has to be taken phase by phase. Shri Krishna, in the few shlokas coming ahead, will speak of the nature of the embodied soul to constantly keep on taking bodies and reincarnating again and again. That is why I'd say that this particular shloka is to bring Arjuna into the perspective that you cannot mourn for anybody because you have not created them. You think that you're destroying them, but that is a play of nature. And they will continue to project themselves again and again, continue to reincarnate themselves again and again. When we kind of enter into this kind of a mindset, then we are very much freed from the fundamental ignorance that we have, the ignorance of ahankara and mamakara. That is I-ness and my-ness. I have a sense of I-ness with me. Say if I'm a father, is because I have a son. I have a sense of I-ness with me as a son. That is because I have a father, a husband, because I have a wife. That I-ness in me starts creating an entity in me. And that is bondage. And then, of course, mamakara, minus that comes with everything. That itself also limits our understanding of ourselves and puts us in this little shell of existence. And that itself is bondage. Now, the truth is not bound by these bondages. The truth will continue to do what it has to do, which in Prakriti is, the goal of Prakriti is to take man from the experiences of sukha and dukkha, happiness and pleasure, to the state of liberation. It is only us in our own mindset that we feel this bondage. Prakriti has no such bondages. It makes us feel like we are in this bondage. And the purpose of the teacher is to immediately tell the student, no, you cannot be at least in this bondage of these ideations that you are stuck with. We can clearly see that Arjuna was stuck with these kind of ideations of I-ness and minus. And Krishna, as a guru, as a perfected guru that he is, clearly could see through this. So this shloka is telling him, you are not responsible for creation, preservation and destruction as it seems to you. Because this power belongs to a higher source, and the higher source will continue to do it. You, me, all of us are instruments to be conducting this great play of existence, its presence and its dissolution. You have to understand it right away that you are merely an instrument. This war that has come upon you is a war that even if you run away, your very bones will be pushed to it. That is because it is your swadharma. He speaks of this idea of swadharma. And if we can take it to ourselves, we can also understand that we are all here with each other to fulfill certain duties, but the soul's journey is on its own. If I have a father today and I'm 40 and my father passes away, within spans of nobody really knows the time, but then by the time a new body is given to that entity while I'm 60 will be a child somewhere in this very earthly existence in some form or the other, and thus we have no control over it. Understanding this itself is quite liberating, because the aspirant, when he has to do self-inquiry or when he has to study about the nature of his or her own self and embark upon the journey of spiritual attainment, the first thing that has to happen is that the aspirant has to be antarmukha or introverted in the energy of the mind. The energy of the mind has to be taken inward. This cannot happen till the basic sense of ignorance, the basic ideas of ignorance are cleared. And this shloka presents that. And Krishna tells him immediately what he needs to know in terms of the ignorance that has kind of possessed his soul. So Krishna tells Arjuna, sit back and first of all understand that you are not in control of annihilating their existence or bringing their existence. If you are not the instrument to bring their existence into reality, you are also not their it is not in your jurisdiction to take a person out of existence. Nobody knows who's going to live, who's going to die. This is a whole play of nature, and you become aware of it. Saying thus, Krishna will gradually present the various stages of understanding. Now, these stages of understanding, before we go to the next shloka, or before we contemplate on the next shloka, is to understand two things. Don't go to the Advaitic perspective immediately. First, try to understand the existence of Purusha, that is consciousness, and Prakriti, that is matter. What comes in Prakriti? The body and the mind, which we will elaborate further as I've put it in a very simple manner, but as we go on, we start to see it better and better. When we see somebody, we talk to somebody, we see that the person is animated in consciousness. A simple spiritual seeker will be able to see that when that body is lying dead, we question ourselves, to whom, with whom have we been interacting then? At that time, a little discrimination will bring to the knowledge of the seeker that yes, whatever it is, it appeared like I was talking to the body, but I was talking to someone else. The body only animated the energy of the mind that presented itself as the entity, but it was never the entity. The entity was something deeper. This much discrimination will come into anyone. It comes into everyone, actually, but most of us do not have the concentration nor the commitment to pursue it, and then we just let it pass. Again, we enter into the whole cloud of seeing everyone as bodies. Here immediately Krishna says, stop seeing people as bodies. If you have this much discrimination, that you see that a person is embodied, there is something deeper inside that brings in the personality sense of the being. You cannot run behind that which is a mirage, that which constantly exists and fades. Even when you're interacting, you should know that the body is only an expression of something deeper. The body is only an expression of something more powerful from within. So here Krishna tries to remove Arjuna's ignorance, the basic ignorance of looking at people as bodies. This much we will try to understand. We will not try to build up a whole philosophy right away. We will slowly, gradually learn to see. The wonder of this is that whatever we learn is not going to be a dictum, is not going to be something that you have to believe. It is going to be something that you have to inquire, something that you have to look into. And doing thus, we actually proceed in the path of self-inquiry with rationale, with a sense of, with the affirmation of knowledge that is done by observation, and the intellect agrees to your observation. If anywhere it does not agree, then it is open to questioning. With this, we end the 12th shloka of the second chapter. Once again, I repeat the shloka. Na tvevāhaṁ jātu nāsaṁ, na tvam neme janādhipāḥ, na chaiva na bhaviṣhyāmaḥ, sarve vayamataḥ param. Om.